I mean, I think if you could promise me 17 games of Daniel Jones at quarterback and he was going to be healthy, I do think that'd be better than what they had last year. He's not going to turn the football over. He's going to be a little safer. That's all valuable stuff, but
You're tuned in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, guiding your gridiron journey, none other than your host, former NFL lineman, Ross Tucker.
Oh, yeah, it is. But it's not just any Ross Tucker Football Podcast. It is a Monster Monday, and it is game week. For those of you that have not heard any of the other announcements or been under a rock, we have not 5, but 6 shows per week, including double the Greg Cosell Thursday and Friday, tomorrow Power Rankings, Wednesday My Picks, double Greg Cosell, Saturday Sit Down, but there's a lot of news, including huge news as it relates to Micah Parsons, which we need to get to after my guy Bill Barnwell gives you the most improved and teams most likely to take a step back. It's Big Show time.
The Big Show.
I just said to Bill off the air, I think this is like an annual thing at this point, but I love these 2 companion columns that he writes so much that I love to get him on the show every year to talk about it. I think most of you now, especially if you're a longtime listener of the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, you're familiar with Bill Barnwell. He obviously has done a fantastic job for ESPN for a long time. You can check him out on social media like I do at Bill Barnwell. And in particular, this time of year, he has 2 very popular, at least for me, columns. It's the teams that he believes 5 teams most likely to improve their 1-loss record from a year ago, and the 5 teams most likely to be worse, for their record to be worse. And I would say, we'll get into a bunch of it, Bill. Most of the time, I agree with you. I would say over 80% of the time, I agree with you. There's always 1 or 2 that I'm not so sure about.
yeah.
Those are the ones that I ask you about. But just a refresher course for my listeners or the people watching youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. The criteria,
Yeah.
and now obviously it's different, but the criteria for teams that you see improving, the criteria for teams you see getting worse, because I do know in terms of some of the underlying statistics and close games and all that stuff, that there are some similarities.
Yeah, we're looking for nerd stuff. We are not looking at just who improved their roster. Anyone can do that. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But what we're looking at basically, Ross, is trying to figure out what stuff we saw in 2024 that's likely to stick in 2025 and what stuff that happened or didn't happen in 2024 that might happen more often or less often in 2025. I'll give you a good example for one of the teams on the improved side of the equation, the Las Vegas Raiders. Something we know about football, maybe seems crazy, but it is true. No team has any ability historically, year after year after year, to recover a high percentage of the fumbles in their games. Ross, if they made you do fumble recovery drills, I'm sorry, it was a waste of time. It is random. When that ball's on the ground, anything can happen. And the Raiders last year recovered the lowest rate of fumbles of any team, I believe since 2011. So in nearly 15 years, the lowest fumble recovery rate on offense and on defense. And historically, we know number 1, that is really tough to do in terms of being that bad at recovering fumbles. And number 2, historically, when those teams do improve their fumble recovery rate the next year, they tend to get better. They tend to win about 2 more games based on how bad the Raiders were at recovering fumbles. So I'm looking for little things like that, whether it be turnovers, whether it be injuries, whether it be, your third down performance, your red zone performance. Is there something unique about your team that historically has said, hey, this is going to lead to your team improving or your team declining, and then kind of incorporate all that stuff and figure out which stuff matters more than the others? Try to build in some common sense about, player performance. The Browns are a team where, unfortunately, the numbers say they're going to improve this year. I don't feel good about picking the Browns given where their roster is and where their quarterback situation is. So they're not on the list, but I try to combine all that stuff and try to come up with teams who are going to improve and who are going to decline.
Man, that is a great stat about the Raiders because I think initially a lot of people would agree with you about the Raiders
Yeah.
improving, primarily because it feels like they've made significant upgrades at
Yep.
arguably the two most important positions, right? Head coach and quarterback. I think intuitively, a lot of people would sit here and think, yeah, I mean, the Raiders are going to be better because they have, an average to above average starting quarterback now. They did not have that last year. They have a
Hmm.
proven head coach. They certainly did not have that last
Hmm.
year. But then you bring in the fumble stat. That's awesome. You don't have this team on either list. And maybe
Yeah.
it's because I do their preseason games on television and do some work for the team.
Hmm.
But I thought what you said about the Philadelphia Eagles,
Hmm.
and I believe last year you thought they would be worse
I
than
did.
they had been in 2023.
Hmm.
Obviously, you know, Bill, if you're going to be wrong, you might as
Be very
well
wrong.
really, really be wrong. But you made a fascinating point about like when's the last time a team signed two free
Yep.
agents? And by the way, two free agents that I mean, we knew about Saquon, but he didn't
Yeah.
get crazy money, and Zach
Hmm.
Ball got nothing. That were both first team All Pro. That
Yep.
never happened. Bill, that was such a great point. That like never happens.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's funny because they were on the list in 2023 as well, and they declined almost exactly to the extent the numbers would have suggested. So I was feeling hot. I let it ride for 2024. I was like, just shove it right back into the pot. We're gonna double it up. It did not quite work out that way, but that's sort of like it's intuitive, right? Like we're looking at what teams did from a year ago, and the reality is teams make changes every year. I know we're sitting here right in August. It's the peak of the offseason. Every fan, every coach, every GM is excited about the moves they made. We're going to see whether those moves actually work out when we get to September and beyond. But every team thinks, oh yeah, we're going to hit on all our free agents or our big free agents. We're going to get on our first two draft picks. We're going to make all our coaching changes are going to be great. Well, that actually happened for the Eagles. It doesn't happen for a lot of teams. And I think it's a credit to Howie Roseman and a credit to, the Eagles that they just were a significantly better team on a play-by-play basis in 24 than they were in 23. And there's a reason they're not on the list this year. They were really, really incredible last season and deserved all the plaudits they got for being the best team in football.
Well, and I'll give you some plaudits because you're one of the only guys out there that I have seen that has said that the Eagles are one of the best teams we've seen in the last 25 years. I
Yeah.
know that the owner, Jeffrey Lurie, has said that, and I've kind of intuitively
Mhm.
felt that way. I mean, after the bye, they didn't really
Oh, they
lose
were
a game
incredible.
again the rest of the year after the first four games. I mean, they lost when Hurts went out in the first quarter with a concussion
But even
at
that game,
Washington.
remember Ross, in that game, they got the ball back after a Jaden Daniels interception. They had Devontae Smith wide open on a third down choice route where they convert that. The Commanders are using their timeouts. The Eagles are in field goal range. Commanders get the ball back with like 25 seconds left. Smith catches that ball. Instead, he drops it. They kick a field goal, give the Commanders enough time to run back down the field and score. And go back to the Falcons game earlier in the year. They have Saquon in the flat to win that game and kick a field goal. He drops it. They give Kirk Cousins time to come back, march on the field, kick a field goal. They're two drops away from being 16-1 last year heading into the playoffs. Then they were great in the playoffs.
Wow, that's a great point. All right, so historically, Bill, and
Yep.
I've seen your numbers, but for the listeners that don't read the article, they should, by the way. Um, your numbers are really good. Like over time, can you refresh my memory on how many of the teams you project to improve have,
Yep.
how many teams you project to get worse have?
We've been doing this on ESPN for about 8 years now. We're looking at about an 80% clip, which is, sometimes, yeah, it can be okay, your team, like the Ravens last year went from 13-4 to 12-5. That's a victory, not a big one, but about 80%. And on both sides, the improved side and the decline side, usually improving by about three to four wins, declining to 3 to 4 wins. So we're looking for that. If we can get 4 out of 5 on both sides, we can get about a 3-win decline here and there. Feel pretty good about what we're going to do here in 25.
Yeah, that is a big, big number. I mean, for them to win or lose like three and a half more games, that's not just a
Yeah,
one game swing. I mean, that's a
right.
significant in terms of the average. I guess one question I had for you about that, Bill, how different are your projections typically than like the Vegas win total numbers. And
Hmm.
I don't know if you look at those or not,
Hmm.
because I did think this year some of them seem pretty obvious to me. You
Yeah.
mentioned the Raiders. I would say the Niners bouncing back from the health issues. I mean,
Hmm.
there's some that jumped out. Others, I would say, Jags, Giants, maybe not as much. We'll get into
Yeah.
that. And then the same for the teams that you have to lose. Some of it, it feels like a little bit of like a regression thing, because
Yeah.
I would think the Vikings, the Lions, the Commanders, the Chiefs, none of them are going to have a season win total number as high as the number of
Right.
games they won last year.
It depends on the team. I mean, like with the Lions, for example, yeah, like you're not going to post 14 and a half as their win total in Vegas. That's crazy. And I think for a team like that, it's right to list them because, well, they are going to be one of the most likely teams to decline. But I think what's more interesting is, well, what are the factors indicating that? You know, me with the Lions, there's something fascinating there because you could be a Lions fan and say, hey, we're going to be better than we were last year. We were one of the youngest teams in football. Our defense was destroyed by injuries by the end of the year. We're going to be healthier on defense. And yet you can sit here and say, you know, the offense was very healthy. They have questions on the interior of their offensive line. For a team like the Lions, it's more about the conversation there than about, you know, strictly, oh, the number is going to go down, because reality is it's hard to win 15 games back-to-back years in the NFL. But for a team like the Giants on the positive side, a team like the Colts maybe on the negative side, I think those are more interesting because they are, you know, not necessarily just about, okay, it's hard to lose or win a significant amount of games. I mean, a team like, you know, Tennessee, for example, I think Tennessee is going to improve this year, but do I want to include them when I can include some other teams who maybe have more interesting conversations to have, like the Giants, you know, like the Raiders? I think, you know, I try to get a mix of both, like, you know, the reality of it's just hard to lose or win a lot of games and the reality of, you know, what are the things telling us about these teams?
All right, so two of the ones that are interesting. Kansas City, they've won all the one-score games. That one
Yeah.
I get. Minnesota, they've got a new quarterback. That one I get.
Hmm.
Detroit, we mentioned, you know, the new coordinators. I think Indy and Washington might
Yeah.
jump out to people. There's probably a belief, and I would put myself in that category. I think the Colts are going to be better at quarterback this
Yeah.
year with Daniel Jones. And then Washington, obviously, I think people look at them as an up and coming team. So that would surprise some people as well. Tell me about Indy and Washington, whatever order you want, about those two teams being teams that you expect to be worse this year.
Yeah, let's go with the Colts. And I think you're right. I mean, I think if you could promise me 17 games of Daniel Jones at quarterback, and he was going to be healthy, I do think that'd be better than what they had last year. He's not going to turn the football over. He's going to be a little safer. That's all valuable stuff. But what we know about Daniel Jones, what we know about Anthony Richardson, unfortunately, is that they both get hurt. They're both injured quite a bit. It's tough for them to sustain and stay on the field. And so I think even though you have maybe a better quarterback with Daniel Jones replacing Joe Flacco in that combo, I just think history tells us that is a going to be a very volatile situation. Like, what if Daniel Jones struggles? They're going to go to Anthony Richardson. I know Shane Steichen said they were going to keep him in the lineup. I'm not sure I believe Shane Steichen when he says that. I think you're going to see them get banged up and go back and forth. I think it's going to be tough for them to have a kind of consistency on offense. And then you factor in the offensive line. They lost a couple starters to Minnesota in free agency. They didn't replace them. And then on defense, one of the things I look at is how often did you play the opposing team's backup quarterback the year before? Just sitting, you know, thinking you can't really control that. You're either going to play the team starter or not. I guess if you're, you know, the Legion of Boom, you know, maybe you have the ability to injure the opposing quarterback frequently enough that you can count on getting the backup. But the Colts can't do that. They had 8 wins last year, 4 of them against backup quarterbacks. I just don't think they're going to get backup quarterbacks quite as often. So don't mind the moves they made. I just think it's going to be a tough situation. And then if we figure the Jags are going to get better, if Tennessee's going to get better, that division is going to be tougher than it's been in years past. And then Washington, I mean, man, that was such a fun team to watch last year. I feel bad. They were on the list of teams likely to improve last year. So I feel bad. It's like, you know, one of my kids went out into the world and now I'm saying, you know, actually you stink. You're not that good. They're going to be fine. But what it feels like to me is very similar to Houston between 23 and 24, right? Remember where we were on the Texans this time last year? Everybody was excited. They had such exciting playmakers. They had made major additions during the offseason. They had a superstar young quarterback. It felt like they were on the rise. And then the season was fine. They won a playoff game. They won the division, but they didn't really take a step forward. I mean, the offensive line was inconsistent. They had some injuries. They had some subpar play, even though they had Laramie Tunsil, who's kind of the one link between these two. They relied a little too much on the quarterback to make magic happen. They had a very old roster. that helped them break through, and some of those old guys weren't quite as impressive in 24 as they were in 23. Commanders, same thing, a very old roster, made a bunch of trades for veterans this year, only 3 top 200 picks, a lot of players missing from the Ron Rivera era in terms of the guys they drafted, so not a ton of young talent around Daniels, around Mike Sanger still. We'll see what happens. I know they like some of their draft picks this year, but the other factor that came to mind, and it's really fascinating to me, as a big nerd, as an analytics guy, I love it when teams go forward on fourth downs, and nobody got more, historically, out of going forward on fourth down and converting than the 2024 Washington Commanders. They were 20 of 23 on fourth down. It's the highest success rate for any team that went for it more than 10 times in NFL history. And then they scored, I believe, 115 points on drives last year where they picked up at least one fourth down conversion. Again, the most we can find in our data. So as good as Jayden Daniels is, as good as the offense can be, as much as I'm excited about the pieces they have there, just think they're not going to have quite as many of those crazy fourth down conversions. I don't think they're going to hit as many Hail Marys this year to win games. Some of that crazy stuff that helped them win some of those close games probably not going to happen again. I think it's some games where, the Falcons missed a field goal that would have won at the end of overtime. They played the Saints. The Saints had a 2-pointer to win the game, and the Saints missed the 2-pointer. Like that stuff, the year you're hot, you get those. The year you're not hot, you don't get those. So some of those are not going to be quite as in their favor. I think they're going to be a good team, 9-10 win team, but I think it's more of like a wild card spot this year than maybe competing with the Eagles for the division title.
That is a fantastic point, Bill, about the fourth down conversions.
Yeah.
Because it's also not like those were all just like fourth and half a yard tush pushes or something, right? That was not like they were like converting real fourth downs.
Yes.
That's a tremendous stat and something to bring up. All right, what about, oh, by the way, before I forget, since you do like to dive into the nerdy stuff, I have a potential homework assignment for you, okay? I have not seen this anywhere else, all right? I think Laramie Tunsil had 19 penalties last year. I would love for someone to tell me what that means in terms of the negative implications for a team, right? Because I know there's stats out there about how often it is, how hard it is to score points, Bill, on a drive where you have a penalty, right? Like how much it goes down. I also think like just those lost yardage, like what I think is if a guy gave up 19 sacks, okay, they wouldn't play it down. Like they would be benched. He's a very gifted pass protector, but 19 penalties. Now I realize it's not a sack because you get to replay the downs. I get that, but it's still a major negative consequence. Like to me, okay, does 19 penalties equate to 8.5 sacks he gave up? That's still a really high number. Like I want to know what that is because I know that it is a huge negative to trying to score points on that drive, any drive where the guy has a penalty like that. You only have like 10 drives a game, and that's one that he ruins at least every game.
Yeah, and I mean, the Texans spent more time in third and long last year than I think any other offense in football outside of the Browns, who were trying to set football backwards with their offense for half the year. So, I mean, that's putting your quarterback in a bad spot. Hey, it's great you have a excellent pass protector, and I think Larry Tunsil's a very good pass protecting left tackle, but now all your other linemen are in bad spots. Your right tackle's in a tough spot because now he's in a situation where he has to pass protect. Your guards have to pass protect, and it's going to be, defenses, because if the clock is stopped, every defense can pull out their exotic pressure. They can pull out whatever they want because they know it's 3rd and 12 and they have a penalty to get them to that point. It is definitely a difficult thing. Definitely something that impacts things more than people think. And even you flip it to the defensive side of the ball. Do you know which defensive back led the NFL in penalties last year, Ross?
No.
It was Pat Surtain, who was incredible, who was a superstar cornerback. But we don't talk about the penalties because that's not something we factor in, and these guys are still good players, but these penalties do matter. I think people kind of discount them when they evaluate them because they don't show up in the stat sheet, but they are meaningful.
All right. Last one, the other side, the Jags and Giants. I think they're going to get better. We talked Raiders. I kind of get the Niners and the Bears with Ben Johnson and the roster upgrades, but Jags and Giants to both be better this year, Bill.
Yep. So Giants, I we'll say they were on the negative side of the list the last 2 years, so it's nice to be positive on the Giants again after being disappointing all their fans. But upgrade a quarterback. We're getting Russell Wilson. It looked pretty good on that deep throw in the preseason. I know you were working elsewhere, but nice deep post for a touchdown, for a near touchdown by Russ. Jackson Dart, they were excited about. I still think Brian Dable can coach. I saw what he did with Daniel Jones. I don't think he's a bad offensive coach. I just think they didn't have necessarily the right pieces in there. Hopefully you're getting more health out of Andrew Thomas. They've been a much better offense with Andrew Thomas, their star left tackle, on the field. He missed most of last season. We all like Malik Neighbors. He's a great player. But I go to the defense. That pass rush was really good the first half of last year. First 8 games, they had like a 12.5% sack rate. They had the highest sack rate through 8 games of any defense I can find since 2000. So I think the defense is legitimately good. And now you're adding Abdul Carter to the mix, which I think that's one of the most fearsome pass rushes in all of football. And then their offense last year, I believe it was the red zone performance. They had such terrible, they had like the 15th worst red zone performance of the last decade. So they were not scoring when they were getting into the red zone. That's tough to do. And I think they have better pieces this year. They're not going to be, they're not going to be great in the red zone, but if they're just adequate in the red zone, that might be a couple wins here and there based on what history tells us. So I think the offense gets better and the defense has a really strong base to build off of. And think, look at the Giants, right? Over the last 30 years, 40 years, when the Giants are good, what's good about that team? It's always the defensive line. It's always the pass rush. That is what's going to propel them forward. I don't think they're going to be a playoff team, but I think they're going to be more competitive than they were a year ago. And then the Jags, it's the opposite. Go to the defense. Go to their turnover rate. They had one game last year where they forced more than one turnover. That is tied for the fewest in NFL history. They did not force turnovers. I think the lowest interception rate of any team in football. That's just tough to do. And now you're adding Travis Hunter to the mix, obviously a cornerback who has great ball skills. Don't know what he's going to play necessarily in terms of his cornerback usage rate, but you're going to get Tyson Campbell back from injury. They've been much better with him on the field at cornerback. Love the pass rush. They have 2 legit guys on the edge. And then, we saw Liam Cohen do great work in Tampa last year, right? I do think that their running game is going to get going with Liam Cohen there. They have a lot more gap schemes this year. I think a lot more, stuff that's going to play to their offensive line strengths. They have more running backs to work with after drafting Biashal Tuden. I think that's going to help. And then I just think, getting a half season out of Trevor Lawrence they didn't get last season. Mac Jones was, he's Mac Jones. I think he did his best, but that was not a great situation. I think with Doug Peterson, they had kind of, I don't know about tuned him out, but I think that by midseason, it was kind of clear there was going to be a change happening. And they didn't really seem like they were the most attuned franchise on the field. I like Doug Peterson a lot. I think he's a good coach, but I just think they kind of sort of ran his course there. But Trevor Lawrence, to me, when he's healthy, is a really good quarterback. And getting hopefully a full season out of him or getting more out of him than they did a year ago, to me, I think propels the Jags forward. And I think that's a division where, they could be a team. Like I said, the Giants, they're not going to win the NFC East, even though the NFC East is the crazy division where whoever wins it doesn't win it again the next year. The Jags, I think, have a real shot at winning the AFC South.
Check him out on social media at Bill Barnwell. Read all of his articles over at ESPN. He does a fantastic job. It's unbelievable the amount of time, effort, energy, and research that Bill puts into his stuff. It is well worth your time, just like it is to have Bill on the show. Thank you so much again this year, Bill. Really appreciate it. Keep up the fantastic work.
Thanks, Ross.
All right, let's dive into the news. But first, it is game time, baby. Literally and figuratively. I will be in the booth, Westwood One, Thursday night for the opener. Cowboys at the Eagles. Those of you looking at YouTube can see I have my beloved Game Time app open, and I'm looking, and right now, the get-in price for that game, $497. You want to talk about a hot ticket. The good news is they have other NFL tickets for as low as $100. The fees are included, which I like, right? I always get fees included. I don't like surprises, so you know your total up front, no surprise fees at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code ROSS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code ROSS for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download the Game Time app today. From the rituals to the noise to the passion, you guys know, game day is an experience unlike any other. Whether you're tailgating, hosting, or just watching at home with your crew, choose Smirnoff because no game day is complete without the world's #1 vodka. It's an official vodka partner of the NFL. It's an award-winning vodka. It's been around since 1864. The brand is all about igniting the collective. When it comes to the NFL, we do game days. Grab a bottle of Smirnoff at your local retailer and head to Smirnoff.com to find recipes of delicious cocktails perfect for game day. Please drink responsibly. Smirnoff number 21 vodka, distilled from grain, 40% alcohol by volume. The Smirnoff Company, New York, New York. Please not share with anyone under legal drinking age.
Tuck's Takes.
All right, Ross, the biggest news from late last week, the Cowboys, they're trading Micah Parsons to the Packers for Kenny Clark and 2 first-round picks. Mike is getting $47 million a year, which is by far the most ever for a non-quarterback. Meanwhile, Dallas is also extending quarterback to Ron Bland.
Brought to you, of course, by Labatt, who brought to me a lot of beers over the weekend. With Labatt, you can buy beer and get gear. Go to their website, snap a photo of your receipt, and upload to gain points towards exclusive merch. Any size, any product, anywhere you're buying Labatt. Sign up at rewards.labattusa.com. Honestly, I've thought about it the last couple of days. I just think it's sad at this point. And I know Giants fans, Eagles fans, Commanders fans won't feel this way, but I wouldn't want my grandfather to be running an NFL team at this point. I certainly wouldn't even want my dad to be running an NFL team. Everything about the trade is horrendous. The timing, I mean, think about that for Brian Schottenheimer or guys like Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb right before the season starts. The timing's horrible to try to get the greatest compensation. You get 2 first-round picks. Those picks might be in the 30s. That's how good the Packers are and are going to be now that they have arguably the best defensive player in football. The fact that the Cowboys wouldn't pay him, that this is the compensation, I don't think it's good for the NFL when one of the marquee franchises is making moves like this that are totally unjustifiable across the board. It's sad.
And 2 other quick notes. The Patriots, they're cutting safety Jabril Peppers, who's owed close to $5 million guaranteed. And the Panthers, they're signing wide receiver Hunter Renfrow, putting Jalen Coker on IR.
Well, so I'm sad because after they traded Adam Thielen, we thought it was Jalen Coker, the Holy Cross kid. We thought it was his time. He has a quad injury, so he's out for a month at least. I'm glad Renfrow gets a chance. The Jabril Peppers thing is weird. I mean, the amount of guys that the Patriots have gotten rid of that they just gave contracts to or want to is wild. We'll see what happens with Peppers, but at least they can get some offset, I guess. But Vrabel is cleaning house. Other than that, I think we're done here. Time to finish this episode strong right after this. Did you guys get your Labatt for the season? Hopefully you saw my post on Twitter X on Thursday night. I am loaded up with Labatt for the NFL season. And you know what I can do? I can get cool stuff just for drinking Labatt, which I was going to do anyway. It's buy beer, get gear. I just go to the website, snap a photo of my receipt, upload it instantly to rack up points for exclusive merch. Listen, any purchase at any store, bar, stadium, it doesn't matter. Anywhere you're buying Labatt, buy beer, get gear. I love their gear. Go to rewards.labattusa.com to sign up.
Thanks for tuning in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Make sure to also check out Even Money, Fantasy Feast, and College Draft, all on the DraftKings Network on Samsung TV Plus, YouTube, or subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.
Shout out myfrontpagestory.com. It is officially September, which means it's officially anniversary season. Get your significant other or your parents or anyone the greatest anniversary gift they could ever get. myfrontpagestory.com, backoffescheduler.com, humanheadnyc.com, Sporticulture, Pizza Boy Brewing.